But I think the first thing is getting people to believe in something that is possible, and a relentless pursuit in the face of a lot of naysayers and people who don't believe in what I'm building.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe that the key to scaling your business and compounding your wealth starts every day with the mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal, to help you scale and compound your wealth and life so you can give more or all of it away to help MVPs. I'm your host today, Brett Swartz, and each and every episode we feature some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires. They share their principles, values, secrets, and wisdom, providing each of us with the insights we need to reach the next level of faith, success, and impact. I'm excited about our next guest. He's out of the great state of Texas, and he has a really tremendous background, really cool background, but he's the CEO and co-founder of Harbor, which brings a wealth of experience, and he brings a wealth of experience from his role as founder and chairman of Mezzine plus Maine. He invented the world's first performance fabric dress shirt and built a Mezzine plus Maine to hundreds of millions of dollars in omni-channel revenue. He's also raised successful growth round from L. Chatterton, secured partnerships with world-renowned athletes like Phil Mickelson and J.J. Watt, and transformed the menswear industry and so much more. Please welcome to the show with me, Kevin Lavelle. Kevin, how are we doing?
I'm great. Good morning. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And for our listeners to get to know you for the first time, would you give us just a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Absolutely. So I live in Dallas, Texas with my wife and two wonderful kids. Been here a very long time. Grew up in Sarasota, Florida, which was a great place to grow up, not terribly far from where you are. And long story short, I had a great early career coming out of college working as a management consultant, and I had a crazy idea to make a performance fabric dress shirt. So launched that in July of 2012. We had just an incredible experience building Mezzine in Maine from the ground up. Ultimately, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. We're in about 1,000 stores around the country. Did a brief stint in philanthropy, had a great experience building some unique new capabilities. And then this idea to build a much better baby monitor and bring sleep expertise to the masses has been with me since my son was born 7.5 years ago. The leading product on the market is called Nanit. It failed our family, and I learned Wi-Fi cameras with apps on phones are not baby monitors. It's a problem that every parent faces, and they realize maybe a little too late that they can't rely on the product. And so we've spent the last couple of years building Harbor. It's a better baby monitor in every single way. It's more secure, more reliable, and a higher quality device than everything else out there. And then we're building pediatric telehealth around it. So excited to share more and unpack.
Absolutely. Really cool. And really neat that you've built from zero to millions, maybe tens of millions of dollars, right, over your career. And now you're on another journey to be the number one baby monitor. It sounds like it probably is already. And I like how it's connected with the family. Before we dive into all of your scaling your business and kind of the impact it's going to have for families and such, I do want to take one other step back. I believe we've all been given certain gifts, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them superpowers. I think they're God-given gifts. I'm curious, what are those one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does it help how you help and bless people today?
I didn't know this about myself until I was able to, build Mezzine to a successful business. But I think the first thing is getting people to believe in something that is possible, and a relentless pursuit in the face of a lot of naysayers and people who don't believe in what I'm building. But doing so, this idea with Mezzine in Maine and Harbor, there's no shortage of reasons not to pursue this, and a lot of people who said it'll never work. But I've been able to bring together a team, raise capital, convince customers. I think that would be one. And then I think the second would be just building productive relationships across a range of different networks. When I came to SMU, that's what brought me out to Texas originally. Met a lot of great people in school, a lot of board members, a lot of business leaders, and many of those folks have either ended up partnered with them, I've worked for them, they've invested in the businesses that I've built. And it's very hard to maintain really strong relationships across, hundreds or even thousands of people, but being able to maintain meaningful relationships and create value both ways, mutually beneficial relationships, keeps doors open for many, many years, and a lot of really great connections that have helped propel Mizzen and Main and now Harbor forward are relationships that were somewhat surprising. Maybe folks that I hadn't talked to in a long period of time, but was able to keep loose connections to. And again, mutually beneficial two-way relationships can open doors over an extended period of time.
Okay, awesome. I think we just captured what the title of this is going to be and how we're going to weave it in here. So it sounds like
It's
A,
great.
getting people to believe in what's not possible. Amazing. Number two, relentless pursuit to continue and despite, the odds or
Yeah,
despite the naysayers. And then building productive relationships from, diverse different places of the ecosystem of the world, of education, of technology,
yeah.
and not only that, but it's mutually beneficial. Is that a fair summary so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say maybe, getting people to believe in what's possible despite everyone thinking it's not possible, right?
Mhm,
I
mhm,
firmly
mhm,
believe that these things are possible. There's a lot of
mhm,
reasons to believe it might not be,
mhm.
but we've got to pick the ones that do. And I think the best example that I can give most recently in my life is I've been in a forum for many, many years, a group of 8 business leaders. We get together once a month. And um, this idea of wanting to build Harbor has been with me for many, many years. And it was 2.5 years ago, a friend of mine in my forum said, the person that you're looking to build this business with is one of my colleagues named Charlie. And Charlie, he said, he is exactly who you need from a technical and kind of a co-founder relationship. And I met Charlie, and Charlie and I are now co-founders. We've become good friends, and we spent the last 2.5 years working to build Harbor. And I could not imagine, literally could not imagine a better co-founder from a skill set. And we've got a great productive working relationship. And it's all, I mean, I'm very good friends with the guy in my forum, but had I not sort of built this relationship over a period of time, I don't know that I would have found that co-founder that I was looking for. And it's hard to believe what the last couple of years would have been like had I not found that co-founder relationship in Charlie.
That's amazing. By the way, if you want to, you're curious about what Kevin and Charlie are building right now, you can go to harbor.co, harbor.car. That's HARBOR.co. And, as a father of 5, I can definitely rate the baby monitor you can rely on. At one point, my wife and I, we had, it was 3 or 4 kids under 6. Wait, under 7? Right around there. Yeah. So,
Woof.
and it
Yeah,
was intense, it was intense. And so, tell us a little bit about that origin story, right? And then we'll kind of weave in, scaling this business from where
yeah.
where it started to where it's at right now, and maybe some lessons along the way.
Sounds great. So my son was born 7.5 years ago. We were in the throes of a major private equity fundraise with El Catterton, so it was a very precipitous time. I remember those details really well. I did a whole bunch of research, and the most kind of tech press covered product on the market was a company called Nanit, and it's a Wi-Fi camera that runs an app on your phone. And I like technology. I thought, oh, that's really cool. They get a lot of press. I bet it's a pretty great product. Got it. Brought our son home from the hospital. A couple weeks later, he's in his own nursery, not too far from our room, but he's in his own nursery, and you're supposed to run an app on your phone in the background. The audio is supposed to run all night long, which is not the best. I don't really want to sleep next to my phone. It's for a whole host of reasons. Sleeping next to our phone is not a great idea. But I woke up one morning and I realized there was no sound coming from my phone. The phone was plugged in. It could have died on me, but the phone was plugged in. And then I realized, oh my gosh, apps on phones aren't baby monitors. I'd run up to my son's room. He was fine. But in that day, we went out and bought one of those old school cameras and old school monitors because it doesn't use the internet and it will absolutely alert you if you're no longer connected. But we decided to keep a Wi Fi camera also because we had a nanny. We wanted to be able to check in when my wife and I actually worked together at Mizzen and Main. We wanted to be able to check in on him from outside the house. And this is one of those, like, technology should make our lives better. It shouldn't add anxiety and stress and frustration. And here we were hacking together 2 different pieces of technology for a need that every single parent faces, which is I want to know I'm monitoring my kid overnight if they need me. And I want to be able to use technology to check in on a nanny, a babysitter, whatever that might be. 7.5 years later, still no one has solved that problem. So what we built is a camera and a tablet that connect directly to each other without internet. And both devices also connect to the cloud. So you get the best of both worlds. And very importantly, from a security perspective, it's unlike anything that exists today because some people have concerns about Wi-Fi cameras, saying, "Oh gosh, well, someone's going to hack in." Our product is encrypted, so you have that level of security, and then all of your footage is stored locally on the camera itself. I've actually got it here. All of your footage is stored locally on the camera itself, and all of our AI detection, so cry detection, is your baby rolling over, all those advanced things that are possible. There's a computer vision chip in the camera itself, so everything is done off the internet locally on your device. And your footage, your stream doesn't leave your house unless you are using our encrypted app outside the house to check in on your own camera. And so it beats every other type of device. Those old school radio devices, if someone's outside your house, they can actually just pick up on your stream directly. They're very unsecure. Just even people feeling like, oh, well, Wi-Fi is less secure. Actually, those radio monitors are some of the most insecure devices that you could possibly have. So what we've done here is just make it easier to be a parent, easier to get more sleep. And we've built a lot of really great telehealth in it, which we can unpack later. But suffice it to say, we're looking to make it easier to be a happier and healthier family.
Oh my gosh, okay, this is really cool. I want to make sure I caught this in a couple business ideas or be themes. Let me know if I'm picking up on this right. So A, you had personal experience, right? So something that hit close to home with your son. I think it was your son, right? You said your son.
Yes.
And then number two, you want it to know and have certainty on really two major things, right? And it sounds like one would be security, right? Not having others to be able to break in, and two, actual execution of what it's supposed to do, which is the baby monitoring, right? But
Yep.
also you add in there the AI detection and the advanced technologies where you could be, completely encrypted and safe. And then if you go outside, it's also encrypted. Is that a fair summary from what I gather so far?
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So now here I think is a key here, right? You focus on just like these major things, right? So I think when you're building a business, and back to what you said before in the beginning, right, which is uh, uh, getting people to believe in what they think is not possible, right?
Mhm.
And how important is it of clarity of what you're solving for and the problem that you're solving for, and building and or getting past that objection of what people might think is impossible.
Yeah, I mean the challenge with what we're doing right now is our product is unlike anything that exists today, right? We're combining the best attributes of the systems that are disparate and you have to put together multiple things, and we have none of the drawbacks or the failures of each of those products. And so the core messaging that we're offering to parents today is like whatever your baby monitor is that you're using today, it's failing you because it lacks a whole set of key features. It is unreliable. It may not actually be secure. And whatever it is that you're using, it's failing you because it's not delivering what it should, or it's quite literally not a reliable device. And so that is there's a lot to unpack in that messaging. And that's part of what we're working through in these early days. There are very few products. You think about some of the hero products that we all use today that in their first weeks or months of launch that all of the messaging was just perfectly crisp and they nailed it. And so what we're working through right now, what is the messaging that's really resonating with customers? And ultimately, as we get bigger and we grow, there will be different messages for different audiences, right? Dads tend to care more about certain things. Moms tend to care more about certain things. For some people, they're just not worried about security at all. They just want all the features. Other people, security is the most important thing and they could care less about the features. So we are sort of working through this, but this is where we want to be responsive to our customers. We want to be engaging with them. And ultimately, our work with influencers, because when I launched Mizzen and Main, influencers weren't really a thing. In launching Harbor today, influencers are a fundamental part of what we're building because they are conveying our messaging for us. And what we're seeing is different messages are resonating with different influencers, and we have a lot to learn. But ultimately, people need to understand what is this thing that I'm doing? What is this thing that I'm buying? And so when you go to our homepage, you'll see there's, the baby monitor you can rely on. That's the core message. And then if you want to unpack deeper, you can go multiple levels, further down. You can understand the encryption that we use. You can understand the technology. You can even understand the chips that we use, because all of this is information that we want our customers to know and be able to understand why this is the device they can actually rely on, as opposed to all the other alternatives that they could have in any given any given choice.
Okay, got it. So, well, I think I got it. Make sure I got it right. So, core message, right? Core message is key, and then two, why you can rely on that core message and how it compares and contrasts to the others that are failing, right? That are currently on the market, and then also tapping into or leveraging key influential people that are going to be able to also exponentially get the message out. Is that a fair summary so far?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you mentioned a couple things that you've learned, right? You're like, we're still, learning about the influencers, like how to roll it out,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
to adjust or tweak the message. What do you
Hmm.
mean by that? Or can you pack that a little bit more and maybe share some wisdom with us on that?
Yeah, so I mean, specifically relevant to Harbor, what we're finding is some of the messages are more focused on the fact that it has a dedicated monitor, and people really love that, and it's really resonating. Some of the messaging is more around the convenience factor of, hey, this product also has an app, and I don't have to worry about when I leave the house if I want to check in on the nanny or I want to check in on the babysitter. And so each of these messages that we're trying, we're finding some resonate more than others. And it's one thing for people to say, "Oh gosh, I really love that." The most important thing is, do they go to our website and buy the product? And so ultimately, it's early innings. We just launched our pre-sale this summer, and we've now begun shipping. We've shipped 100 units over the course of the summer, and now we're shipping thousands of units here late summer into the fall. Um, the most exciting thing to learn from is when people actually start using the product and send us messages. Some of it is unsolicited. Some of it is, hey, why doesn't it do this? And we have to sort of help them understand, actually, it does. Here's where the settings are. But being responsive to what is resonating with customers. And then also, sometimes you feel like, gosh, we really nailed this messaging and it's so clear. And you keep getting questions, well, how does this work? And you're like, well, we clearly have not made this unequivocally obvious yet. Why is that? What is it that people need to understand from an onboarding flow? How do we update the customer service? Because we want to be responsive to customers' needs and questions, but also some people don't want to have to write in. They don't want to have to ask the questions. They would prefer to self-serve, be able to look through the website, look through videos. So it's an exciting but very dynamic time.
By the way, we're talking with Kevin Lavelle, Lavelle, and you can learn more about everything he's talking about at harbor.co, the baby monitor you can rely on. And you're probably wondering, probably, but I hope you're getting these business ideas and tips and core best practices, how to scale from zero to millions or millions to billions. By the way, on this point here, Kevin, Sam Walton, I heard it was said that he spent, how he spent his days, building Walmart to the behemoth that it is. He spent 4 days typically out in the field once it got up and running, really, really kind of
Sure.
succeeding. 4 days in the field, and he did two major things. Number one, talking with customers, like literally being
Yes.
in the stores or being with the
Hmm.
customers. Number two, looking at competition and figuring out ways that they might be falling back, right? And then
Sure.
so that was 4 days, and then one day he would spend with his team, reviewing what he learned, and
Yes.
two, implementing what they can now improve on. I'm curious, how have you maybe what's your schedule, what's your pace, what's your rhythm when it comes to things like this? Because I think you're pulling out some of it right now, but any
Yeah.
insight of how you built the first company, how you're building this one now?
So I think the very structured time will come with Harbor. We're still so early, and it's very much firefighting mode, right? There's some days and some blocks of time where I can allow myself to think ahead. Where do we want to go? But we're very, very much in a like every day is unpredictable and dynamic. We've also been in fundraising mode for much of the last 2 years because it's been a very difficult fundraising environment. And so when an investor says, "Hey, can you talk at 11?" It doesn't really matter what else I'm doing at 11. I need to be able to have that conversation. Thankfully, we've now finished our seed round, so we're able to get back to much more focused planning. What I would say with respect to like structured time, when Mizzen and Main got to the point where I had kind of 15 to 20 team members, and we were now well north of $10 million in revenue, we got to this place where I was finally able to say, like, this is the time I'm going to focus on our wholesale and talk with wholesale team, talk with our customers on the wholesale side of the business, think through trade shows, what's happening in the industry, and then move over to what are we doing with the marketing? What are influencers we're starting to grow? Who are we reaching out to? How am I using those connections that I've been able to build? And that was when I felt like I really started to shine and be able to build and scale in a way that for the first, 4 years, it was just pure firefighting mode, just running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But ultimately, the most important kind of pivot for me was when I had incredible team leads. So Ryan, who's now the CEO of Mizzen and Main, he was our seventh hire. He was our COO, and we got to this rhythm where it was very rare that he would say, "I need you to talk to one of our vendors, or I need you to come with me to meet with." I would have one or two trips a year where he and I would go meet with our vendors from like a long-term relationship building perspective, but he just sort of ran the show. And what that allowed us to do was talk strategically and kind of riff with each other on, hey, this is a problem I'm facing. How should I be thinking about this differently? As opposed to I'm down in every element of the weeds, firefighting or handling things myself with somebody. Um, and there's been a huge explosion of chatter over the last couple of weeks in Paul Graham's founder mode post that just went very viral. And it is a great concept to have a founder that can really be driving long-term vision and creation. And there's lots of arguments as to, does it mean delegation? Doesn't it mean delegation? It's going to be different for different businesses. But what I loved was when I had those incredible direct reports that I could partner with rather than I'm sort of helping them make every decision or helping them manage those vendors directly. And so I look forward. I've got an incredible team with Harbor. I had to build a team much earlier with Harbor, given the magnitude of what we're building. With Mizzen, it was very slow going for a while. It was one person, two people, three people. Whereas with Harbor, we have four full stack developers. We have a head of marketing, a head of nursing, a head of hardware, because what we're building is so complex and we need to basically be perfect before customers ever touch the product. So it's been a different path to building. But now that we're beginning to ship thousands of products, I think we're about to hit kind of the most exciting next phase of the business.
Yeah, incredible stuff, and congratulations on the success of the businesses. And a couple key points I kind of want to, pull out a little bit here. So north of 10 million of revenue you found after 4 years of building the first company, and the key having incredible team leaders who you said it well. You said partner with versus like having to go along and delegate with. It's almost like they really could own that part of the business and not having to pull you in for your time and energy to get out of what I've heard Alex Hormozy say is like the flow state, right? So there's the
Yeah.
visionary who's the creation, the inventor mind that you have, the that focus on even creating content or creating
Hmm.
creating the thing, and there's the manager, right? So there's managers and makers is the way he puts it, right? He does a whole.
Yeah.
By the way, if you haven't seen this
Yeah.
video, it's pretty awesome on YouTube. Look up Alex Hormozy, makers versus managers, and he breaks down how
Absolutely.
he and his schedule. He breaks it down to like 3 days a week or even 4 days. His goal is to just spend the entire day or the majority of the day just pure in maker mode, meaning no disruptions, no distractions. And then at least,
Yep.
1 or 1.5 days a week, he's in manager mode, meaning he's doing all the meetings, the direct reports, the big time meetings. But he's also
Yep.
scaled to a point where he has those incredible team leaders, right, who
Yep.
you can count on to continue all
Yep.
the stuff in the background. But any kind of rhythm that you found, and I know it's different for different stages of the companies, like you said, but when did you know? Like when you say, well, it was 10 million, well, what about it did you say, great, I've delegated enough now? Boom, they can just run with it. Like, is there any wisdom there for when to pull the trigger on some of these shifts?
It wasn't as if, we hit 10 million as like a magical number. I said, oh, there it is. It was much more about the flow of the people that I worked with. And, it was around that time where things did start to shift. But up until that point, I had to do some version of everything myself. Right? It was selecting who was fulfilling the product and helping stand that up, and it was migrating over to a software system and going through the RFP process myself. And then I started to notice migrating to, and this is just an easy example, migrating to a more robust 3PL. I had almost nothing to do with the selection process. It's time. And I was brought in for key points of decision making along the way and where I could be helpful responding to here's the opportunity, here's the problems, here's the trade-offs, here's what our decision is, or hey, help us make a final decision based on these points. When those things started to happen, I wasn't the fundamental driver of each point of progress along the way. I was there to be helpful, and not as if I had all the answers, but it was my job to help make the decisions where some decisions needed to be made. And in other cases, it was, hey, we've decided to change advertising firms that we're working with, and here's who we're working with, and here's what the differences are. Great, let me know. Happy to go to the first meeting and meet, or if you think it'd be better to not have me involved until later, that's okay too, right? You're going to manage this relationship. When those types of decisions and discussions and kind of protocols are happening, that's when it's like you've made it to the next level because you're not the one saying, hey, why isn't this working, or what needs to be done differently here. And in some cases those things will happen where you go, for the fourth one-on-one in a row, we're still talking about why this is such a problem. Like, why aren't you making a change? And it could be, hey, I didn't see it that way. Yeah, I get it now. um, and I look at that as, when you're in that mode, it's not just a management from like I'm in there, I'm in the system, like approving payroll, just very monotonous management. But I think management mode, a lot of times people talk about manager mode as if it's this very monotonous kind of drudgery, kind of boring thing. I look at management mode as, if I've got an incredible team, that's some of the most exciting work that I get to do, is partner with great leaders and figure out how to drive further and forward. As opposed to, I'm checking boxes and making sure everyone's done their performance reviews. And yeah, there's some aspect of it, but I most enjoyed getting to work with great leaders and driving the business forward. I didn't look at that as a, uh, you know, I guess I have to dedicate a day to all the BS that I've got to manage with all of my direct reports.
Oh, that's
And
so
and
much
so
wisdom there. I want to touch on that real
yeah,
fast, by the way. I
yeah,
went to a workshop with Gary Harper. He's with Sharper Solutions, and he's masterful with basically implementing all things, systems, culture, leadership, process, procedure. And he talked about this, and he said it's really important. Like the traditional, I guess, EOS system is visionary and integrator, right? Visionary and
hmm
integrator. And like you said, your
hmm
initial reaction as a visionary is like, oh, if I'm a visionary, I don't want to be the integrator, and vice versa. And so he changed the actual term, and he says it's visionary versus leadership. Okay, kind of exactly what you're touching on here.
yeah,
And he's like, it's like, as a visionary, and if you have the co-founder, right, or the COO or whoever you bring in, like you want to empower them so much for them to be the leader and them to lead and build the team and the systems and process procedure. And as a visionary, yes, you are still there to provide overall cultural leadership, right? Kind of more
hmm
broader culture, of course, vision, of course, inspiration, pushing forward, those kind of things. But like the day-to-day leadership and like that is an amazing thing. Like you got to have both. And he goes, too often, if you have, and I kind of, to be honest, before I went into that, I never thought of it like that, right? I always thought it was like, yeah, the integrator is just kind of implementing the things that the visionary wants to do. No, it's so much more than that. It's the leadership. So, any
yeah.
thoughts on that, or you want to connect those dots there for us?
I wholeheartedly agree. And I've got some friends, especially in my forum, that have run that EOS protocol, the visionary, the integrator. I've never done it as cleanly as visionary integrator, because with Mizzen and Main, I started the business and I sort of had to wear all hats for a long period of time. And then I hired someone to run marketing, hired someone to run operations. And so it was more of, each of us had a little or a lot of the visionary role in parts of the business. And then we had the responsibility of the integrator. I think it's a rare business where you can have such a clean delineation between the two. Um, it's wonderful if you can do it. And I've seen people build amazing businesses. But with something like Mizzen and Main and now Harbor, and you think about, I've got a Yeti koozie in front of me. It's rare that it's like, you're the visionary, you're the integrator, and there's a clean line. There are great protocols if you can do it and you have the right balance. But my co-founder and I, he runs the technical product side, and I'm the CEO. And it's not as if I just sort of say, like, I'm the visionary and you handle all of the details, which is, I think, a misreading of how a lot of people end up looking at those systems. Each of us have roles. Each of us have different pieces of the visionary and integrator piece. Um, that said, the the methodologies in EOS, I think, are so important to understand. Where do we want to be in 3 years, in 1 year? Okay, what does that mean for the next quarter? What are our deliverables? What are our rocks? Those are really great grounding tools, because otherwise you can run around chasing your tail and accomplish nothing because everything feels like it should be something we pursue. Um, but it's yeah, that's how I would wrap that up.
Oh, that's so good. So much wisdom there. And by the way, again, you can Kevin Lavelle, you can go to harbor.co, look him up on LinkedIn. He also he's on X as well. I believe it's Kevin S, right? Or Kevin underscore S, something like that. Kevin, you can
Kevin S. Lavelle. Yep.
oh, Kevin S. Lavelle, there it is. So I want to move into the kind of the exit part and then the impact part, and then we'll go the lightning round. So the exit part has to do with large exits, right? And I don't know if you've even exited the first Mizzen Main. Did you exit that one already, or are you still part of
Nope.
that?
Still,
Okay,
yep, still rolling. I'm still chairman there.
awesome. Have you exited any large business exits at this point, or real estate or anything yet? Or are you still
No,
just still growth mode?
nope. Still in growth mode, but have a lot have a lot of thoughts and some great friends who've gone through it on their side.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So this is the point of this, and I mean, actually, this is kind of good because you haven't quite exited the big one yet. So one of the biggest things we found, and when people go to exit, they 5, 10, 15, 20 years, tens of millions of revenue, huge exits. They have what's called a large capital gains tax, right? And
Hmm.
and they spend all of this blood, sweat, and tears, thousands and thousands of hours of building the business, but they
Hmm.
they fail to build what's called a capital gains tax exit plan, and they end up getting
Hmm.
caught with this huge tax, and they give
Hmm.
20, 30, 40, 50% sometimes of the proceeds to the government. So I'm
Hmm.
curious, right, from your perspective as a founder or someone who's built a lot, how much time and effort have you given to, well, if I were to exit, what kind of plan do I have in place to try to
Hmm.
preserve and defer that capital gains tax? And it kind of leads into the other point you mentioned. It was hard to raise capital or to get that seed capital. We're in a tough spot right now. I believe it's because number of things, but really I call it unlocking capital, right? Solve the problem beforehand,
Hmm.
defer the tax on the big exit, and then it can go right into your business venture or right into your real estate deal, be
Hmm.
passive into Reg D stuff or into a seed round. So just that overall thought of, we were talking about strategy to build business, but what about exiting? Have you given that much thought, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, you're far more of an expert here than I am. Obviously, the biggest change from Mizzen and Main to Harbor is with Harbor with the QSBS exemptions, establishing tax basis early, making sure that right you pay the taxes on the stock or the options, and when we work to try and help our team understand the types of options and well choices in front of them, but establishing tax basis early and qualifying for QSBS has been the single biggest change from Mizzen and Main to Harbor. Mizzen and Main is an LLC. That was a point of guidance that was given to me early on because it was easier. There are pros and cons to that, some of which I regret, but ultimately I've held it I'm now in the long term cap gains perspective. But ultimately, with Harbor being able to be a C corp, qualify for the QSBS, that has been again one of the greatest opportunities that I've had. And the other thing I've seen is some of our smaller investors, our angel investors, have been investing out of their 401k, the Roth IRA, and it's allowed them to hold some of these gains in a incredibly tax efficient manner. You can't do that as a founder. It's much more complicated as a founder. That's why Peter Thiel, everyone's written about what he's done with his Facebook shares. When I first read that, I was pretty excited and thought, "Oh, that's really cool. I'm going to do that." And then I learned that you can't. But the biggest thing here is just educate yourself on what your options look like. What sort of things are you even able to do? Because real estate's an entirely different world than an LLC, entirely different world than a C corp, and so not having any idea about that with Mizzen and Main, there were plenty of things that I could have done differently at the start. Now I'm so far removed from that as a kind of something I could have changed at the beginning that I was able to make some changes for how we set up and how we qualified and protected ourselves with QSBS.
By the way, and for those who don't know, would you explain what QSBS is and why it's going to be a great outcome for you?
Yes, with all of the caveats that don't follow any of my advice because I'm not an expert, et cetera, et cetera. QSBS is qualified small business stock, and if it is a certain type of C corp that you invest in, if you hold that stock for more than 5 years, there you pay no taxes on gains up to $10 million or some other threshold, but that's sort of the headline number. Um, there are there's a very important caveat that you need to own the stock outright. And so one of the things that we've tried to do with our team members is give them the ability to buy that stock at a very low fair market value, which you have to get from an independent entity. Carta, we are customers of Carta. They provide free 409A evaluations, excuse me. And that has allowed all of our employees to establish that tax basis early as well, because you want that shot clock to start. When employees join later on, it's typically much more advantageous to do options because it's less cash out the door, but then you don't establish that tax basis until much later. So there are trade-offs, and certainly there's a lot of information out there, but QSBS is a great way to encourage investment into earlier stage startups and defer or eliminate some of those gains taxes entirely.
Awesome. So I'm curious, what happens if your gain, let's goes to instead of 10 million goes to 20 or 50 or $100 million? What is the thought on the QSBS and how that might not be quite as effective for more than 10?
Yeah, who knows if it's going to be anywhere near that number, right? This is the world of startups. You certainly dream that it might be. But QSBS is on up to the first 10 million. And so after that, there are all sorts of strategies. And again, I'm going to defer to the expert. The most important thing from how we view impact is being able to establish some sort of charitable giving strategy. And there are different strategies that folks want to pursue. But the ability, my wife and I have started giving away some of our stock to different entities. And being able to do so has tax benefits, but also it's really exciting for the philanthropies that we're able to donate to, because it's a bet on the long term, right? They can't monetize it until later. But if it works, it can be an absolutely transformative gift. And so that's one of the things that we've done from the early days, especially because the impact is many, many more times than a check we're able to write at this point in time while we're still in startup mode.
Absolutely love it. Yeah, and we're going to move right into impact right after this. And so I want to just mention to everybody, in case you're looking for ways to defer capital gains taxes on LLC, C corps, S corps, save a fail 1031 exchange on public stock, private stock, any asset of any kind. We do offer here at Capital Gains Tax Solutions, where I'm the founder of, a deferred sales trust, which has no limitations on the amounts. The key is having a plan, whether it's QSBS, whether it's charitable giving, whether it's a 1031 exchange, whether it's the Roth IRAs and the 401ks, having a plan in place, because the government has a spending problem, which means we all have a tax problem, and it's over 35 trillion right now. And so we've got to be very proactive, as proactive to be great stewards with the capital gains tax and other tax
Mhm.
planning as we are with building our company. Because guess what? That government's been the silent partner the whole time, and they are ready and willing and waiting for that 20, 30, 40, 50% or more at the sale to capture that. But you can plan now, you can defer that tax. You can also figure out ways to eliminate estate tax. Lots of different things there. Go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to learn more. That being said, let's move into the impact and the lightning round. You ready, Kevin?
I'm ready for you.
All right. So, what's the top thing that you feel like is, hey, if I can make the biggest impact for causes that you believe in, what's the one that your heart really moves towards, and the things that you're really passionate about?
So there are no shortage of things that I would love to be involved in. No shortage of amazing organizations and great people working on very good solutions. Where we've chosen to focus as a family with Mizzen and Main from the very beginning, we've had a very deep and ongoing commitment to the veteran community. And one of the great partnerships that's emerged out of our giving with Mizzen and Main as a company is Adaptive Training Foundation, started by Dave Vibora here in Dallas, Texas. Incredible group. They do work with both veterans and the civilian population, but importantly, they bridge that divide. And I loved Dave's suggestion as to why he decided to do that, which is civilians and veterans don't live apart. When veterans return, they live amongst civilians, and bridging that divide has been really important. And it's all about getting folks who've been faced very severe physical or mental impairments, get them back to living independently. From a personal side, my wife's family has been very deeply affected by cancer, and so we work with an organization in Dallas called Cattle Barons Ball. It's the largest fundraiser for the American Cancer Society. My wife does a lot of work with them. And then personally, I actually spent several years working at an organization called Stand Together. And the number of groups that they work with, I mean, I could spend the next hour talking about those groups, but ultimately their focus is on how do we help society prosper and how do we help drive real systemic changes on the fundamental drivers of poverty, the fundamental drivers of societal divide. And so they work with a lot of organizations in both the early and mature days to drive real change over time rather than sort of just in time solutions. And so one of the great groups that we've worked with here in Dallas for a long time is Urban Specialists. And their focus is on how do we change the culture within primarily urban communities? How do we help kids see a path out that is not based on gangs, not based on violence? And amazingly, they recruit former gang leaders to come into these schools and communities and help show kids that that path is not the one that they want to pursue. And they typically go block by block, school by school in urban communities and drive a real change in conversation in the communities, but also with the kids themselves. And so many times in these urban schools, there just isn't somebody that shows that there is a better way. And what I've loved with urban specialists is these are ex-gang leaders who will come in and basically tell the gangs that are trying to come into the neighborhood, you're not welcome here. And that just that light, that opportunity can make a profound impact on kids' lives. So we've been very grateful to play a very small role in urban specialists and continue to share their message.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Question number two, number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
I'm going to go with the number one book I've recommended, overall to all startup people, and it's The Hard Thing About the Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And then I'm going to cheat and offer a second, which is my favorite book in entrepreneurship, is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. As someone who built an apparel company and is blessed to be in the performance apparel world, what Phil Knight did to change the world of startups and apparel and branding will live on forever.
Amazing. Question number three, what are you most curious about right now?
I am most curious right now on how our country is going to stop yelling and screaming at each other and get back to living normally, because that's how most of us live around our streets and our neighborhoods. Is we talk normally and we get along, and we seem to just be doing a lot of screaming at each other and trying to shut the other team down, whatever that means.
Very well said. Next question. Number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I would say leadership slash decision making, and I come back to this all the time. Jim Carrey at a convention, a convocation speech, one time said, "You can fail doing what you don't love, so you might as well try to do what you love." And that isn't why I started Mizzen in Maine, but that really resonated with me in the early days. And deciding to jump back into the world of entrepreneurship, there's no guarantee in any path, and entrepreneurship is an incredibly difficult path. But I've got friends who picked very stable careers, and their company or their industry imploded, and they had no control over it. So I continue to come back to I continue to come back to that, and I'm fortunate enough to be able to pursue trying to do this crazy startup thing again.
Absolutely. That's really cool. I love that quote. I haven't heard that one before. Next question. Top way you use Chat GPT?
Right now, I have been using ChatGPT to help me condense or rewrite thoughts. So in some cases, I'll have a long email, or I'll have a lot to say, and I'll say, make this 40% shorter, and or hey, that's a little too serious, make it a little more casual. And it's helped me get out of my own head. Like I can just put a whole bunch of stuff down, and then it will rewrite it and condense it for me. And I'm using probably 1% of its potential, but honestly, it's been really helpful. And then downloading their app, you can just talk to it. I didn't really understand that for a while, but just being able to talk and say, I'm just going to talk for the next 5 minutes, take what I say and put it into an email to a colleague, done. That has been an enormous time saver.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like honestly, that right there is worth the entire show. Like, if you haven't
Yes.
got the app, get the app, and it's $20 a month for the full version. Pay it. It's worth every single second or
Yes.
minute or that you save. But I think even the free version will work fine too. But you click into it and you can talk into it. And it can be Instagram posts, it can be marketing campaign, it can be an email
Mhm.
sequence, it could be an emails, but
Yep.
I mostly use it for it as well. Or it can just be helping you to clarify your thoughts, right? And how to formulate your thoughts. It's so cool. Love that you share that and use it in that way. Really, the last question is this, Kevin. After all your success, helping all the people you've helped, right, and with with giving back, with building industry, how do you best stay centered in your values, and then stay encouraged to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
It's cliche, but I do have to keep coming back to it. It's none of this really matters when you're tucking your kids in at night. And so all the things that I stress about, all the things that distract me, being able to tuck my kids in at night is one of life's, walk them to school in the morning. It's one of life's greatest pleasures. And watching them grow up, they're 5 and 7 right now. It's this hyper speed time frame, right? The difference between a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old is enormous. And so I'm watching that accelerate so quickly. It is something that forces me to slow down and has appropriately forced me to make some trade offs on my time. Whereas I would be much more comfortable kind of burning the midnight oil and, working all night. Um, I don't want to do that anymore because I would rather be able to spend good time with my family. And I don't actually think that makes me a less impactful entrepreneur. I think it makes me a better one because I'm able to make better trade-offs with my time and decision making. Um, and in that vein, when you see other people, especially with the fake world of Instagram, they're reading 45 books a year, they're traveling to a dozen new places, and they're training for a marathon and an Ironman. They're doing all that stuff. You're like, trade-offs coming somewhere, and they're probably not spending that equal amount of time with their kids. That is a trade-off that I'm very satisfied to make right now in my life.
Kevin Lavelle, it's been more than a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for sharing a ton of wisdom with us. I want to encourage you to keep using your gifts of getting people to believe in what's not possible and moving forward in a way that can make an impact, especially for families, for kids, for babies, for commerce. Right? Continue to have a relentless pursuit to do that, and also to bring people together, diverse backgrounds, right, and mutually beneficial ways. I think you're living your values with the causes that you believe in and the things that you support. And so I want to thank you for taking action and living what you love to do, which is what you're doing right now. So for our listeners who want to get in touch with you, can you remind one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
So our mission at Harbor is happier parents and healthier families. So we have a ton of free resources available at harbor.co. Whether or not you need a baby monitor from us, we've got a lot of great things that can help parents and kids get more sleep. And then for me personally, you can find me on X at Kevin S. Lavelle, and I post a lot on LinkedIn. I've started doing behind the scenes videos, sharing what's happening as I build Harbor real time. Happy to be as helpful as I can or answer questions along the way.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you, Kevin Lavelle. And also, I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to an episode of the Build to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. And we are on the journey with you. We bring on Kevin because he's done it. He's done it with the first company, he's doing it with the second company. But more than that, he believes, just like we do, of making an impact, not just scaling for millions or billions, but to make an impact with the wealth. And we also believe that it starts with the practice and a mindset of stewardship over ownership. So we want to encourage you to do just the same. Take these concepts, take this information, take this inspiration, and take action today. I'm Brett Swartz, everybody. I appreciate you listening and watching. Please visit us on our YouTube channel, Build It to Billions, if you're not already watching us there, and subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to everyone again real soon. Bye now. All right, brother.